Make sure you stick around until the end to see how you can win free gear and products. Hey, this is PJ with CLK Supplies. Welcome back, and I am super excited to introduce you to a special guest that you're going to love meeting. So in just a moment, I'm going to patch in Dennis Ma, who is the owner of Town Steel. As you know, I absolutely love the Town Steel product line, the eGenius, eElite, and eSmart. Not only are they top-notch quality in my opinion, but they're also great priced. And it's really hard to find something that has a great price and is high quality, right? And I think once you get to know Dennis a little bit and understand his background, it'll make a lot more sense, because this is the deal. We know him from Town Steel, but he's been in the hardware business about as long as I've been alive, and he's been a major player in it as well, with providing components to other manufacturers. So it's like, after years of doing component making and manufacturing, and then he goes ahead and creates his own lock brand, Town Steel. We're all really getting the best of the best, right? We're really getting all the fruits of all the years in the business, and I really hope you enjoy. Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm super excited to introduce you to our guest today, and that is Dennis Ma of Town Steel. Dennis, thanks for coming on here.
Hey PJ, nice to be here.
Yes, thank you. So, it's exciting. So for those who don't know, Dennis is the owner of Town Steel, and I've been privileged enough to have a few conversations with him, and I'm really excited to introduce Dennis to you all. So Dennis, if we could just start with, how did you get into the lock industry?
Well, about 35 years ago, I was helping a Taiwanese manufacturer to develop business in the US. And then I got attached to it. And then I started my own company. Then it all happens.
Okay. But so you started off just working with a lock company, and then you eventually ended up just starting your own. And you've been...
Yes, we have been engaged heavily with the major brand of manufacturer in the US. We supply them with stampings, forgings, investment castings, and CNC machining, die casting, finished hardware. And I think about 15 years ago, I took an opportunity and was the managing director for one of the major hospitality company to help them develop business in Asia Pacific. And that is the opportunity I start having my own brand.
Oh, okay. Okay, so you've been in the industry for about 35 years, so just about as long as I've been alive. And from that point, then you started your own business, making components and pieces, essentially locks. But you were just making the parts and pieces, and then you were selling them to major US brands of locks.
Yeah, we are still doing that with another brand, and
okay.
Represent a bunch of top class manufacturer, and then we help them and make them a good supplier. And then so after so many years, we still are supplying those customer. And what I'm doing here is totally outside of that. And from what I learned making those component parts, and I decided to have my own brand. And it took a long time to get where we are today. And so we are a full-blown architectural hardware supplier. We have a complete line of electronic locks, and Town Steel wants to be the major electronic lock provider.
Okay. Okay, so you essentially took all of your experience over the years of making all the components for other manufacturers, and you took your knowledge and information, and in 2003, I believe, is when you started the brand Town Steel, where you're actually getting to sell what you make, essentially.
That's true. And I learned from that. I think I mentioned it to you that, I started with mortise lock. And today, Town Steel have 5 mortise lock that individually certified in BHMA NC grade 1. And we make a lot of mortise lock. And it all started that I think this is a good product. And I was, with permission, I was using another brands as a platform. Then I realized that I couldn't really pass the NC grade 1. So I did a lot of investment and study. And in 2005, I was testing the 2002 standard with Intertech. And believe it or not, I failed 10 times. I've been doing everything I can, try to pass the test, and I failed. So
10 times in a row.
10 times in a row.
And out of curiosity, I don't know much about this this space really, but how long does it take to go through to start the test and go through it? Is there a long time span, or is it pretty short?
For the NC grade 1, there are usually 2 types of tests. One is called operational test. The other one is called security test. And the one that failed is one of the security tests called cylinder body tension test. This is a mortise lock. There's drill a hole on the mortise cylinder and tap the hole and put the anchor. Then they use a hydraulic press to push and pull 3,600 pounds. So I failed the first time. Then I start changing my design. I'm making the 2 more thread, and then go back to test. And then I still failed because my strike screw was pulled off, because the 3,600 pounds is just immersive forces. So I keep changing, and failed 10 times. And finally, I pick up the phone, call Intertech, and trying to find out how come I can fail 10 times. And they say they don't know how I designed my lock. So I asked him, who passed the test? Intertech said they have NDA, they couldn't give me the names. So I said, let me rephrase my question. I said, has anybody passed the test? And the answer is no. Because yes, because the standard 2005 testing is still 2002 version. And 2002 version is that they quickly changed the standard after the 2001 911 strike. So BHMA made a very hard standard that no one can pass. Then end of 2005, they finally revised it. So I got my first NC grade 1 certificate in 2006. And that, 10 times failure really helped me learn a lot about the lock. So later, so later on, 2008, we start having our first non-handed mortise lock. We have a couple patents on our non-locking hub. And then we have a clutch mortise lock. And then Town Steel was very small, so I was trying to do retrofit. So I even have a mortise lock, currently NC grade 1 certified. It's just I can retrofit another 2 major brand, totally different lock. That makes me 5 total NC grade 1. Oh, by the way, I have a automatic deadbolt that is also NC grade 1 certified, mechanically or motorized.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's a lot. I mean, that's so going through that failure process, failing that 10 times, that's the point where you really dug in. You already knew the components, you knew the parts, the pieces, but you were like, what does it take to actually get this done?
It takes a lot, but because the standard was not reasonable. So 2002 standard has a floating strike. And usually strike is recessed in the mortise strike place. And then they try to increase the strength, so they have a floating. So that, simply you are 3,600 pounds, you are pulling on the lock that actually put the pressure on the strike, and there's only 2 screws to hold the strike. That's why they failed.
Okay. Very interesting. So from this point, so you're going on, so you have all this mechanical experience on building components, now building the actual locks.
Yes.
And then you enter into the electronics, and you're entering into the lock electronic market as a mechanical lock manufacturer. And so I'm sure that, how was that going from just a mechanical lock manufacturer to actual a electronic lock manufacturer?
Well, we started with mortise lock, and then we realized that for the Division A, you need a mortise lock, you need a cylindrical, you need a door closer, you need a panic device, you need everything. So we start in 2008. We were the first wave of making the ligature resistant product. So our first lock is grade 2 lever ligature resistant. And at that time, I purchased that spindle as a component and designed a trim to make it work. And then we realized that no, the lock is not heavy duty enough. So we switched to grade 1 and from another supplier, and then still not good enough. So we were forced to design our own cylindrical. And then we have since earned 3 patents on Townsteel cylindrical lock. So from there, we are now totally self-sufficient. So we have grade 1 mechanical cylindrical, and then we have a grade 1 mechanical ligature resistant cylindrical. And then we add motor to become motorized cylindrical. So organic growth, that's how we grow. And
okay, so throughout the process, it sounds like you were trying when you could, using other components. Like you weren't above trying to use other components to make it work, but you just found that what you were trying to do, you were really needing to come up with your own proprietary design.
Yes, especially the ligature resistance is require extra heavy duty. So using in the behavioral healthcare environment, the lock has to be extra heavy duty. So I couldn't find the one that meet my requirement, and I wasn't. It's not easy to do all this, but I'm forced to do it because I couldn't find a supplier can supply that. So same thing, later on, we were commissioned to design a motorized deadbolt. And then we did. And then we also got a patent design because we know how to protect the motor from retracting the deadbolt and throw the deadbolt. And then we are converting between the manual and motorized. And then we even add a force sensor in the motorized deadbolt so we can sense the deadbolt position. So if the deadbolt is not fully thrown, we can send a warning signal so the owner understood that their lock is not secured. So all this is proved to be, worth it. And then we start designing our interconnect. And again, we have a patent design in 2016 that we're trying to provide a product I call EAL. EAL means evolution all. It means electrify all. My electrify can replace 80% of the mortise lock in the market, remove the old worn out mechanical lever trim, replace my electrified trim, and become a motorized product. And then if we add a remote control, we can make that a remote lockdown lock. So, my take is like a LAUSD who has 110,000 doors. They have many old mortise lock. They need help. And then this has become the most economical way to convert their mechanical mortise into electronic controlled or even further remote lockdown lock. So we design all that. And then one of the design we apply on the interconnect and make our interconnect lock the way we are, that we can double lock and double unlock, and simply the best interconnect lock in the US today. And we are We passed all the security tests on the interconnect, grade 1, and we are waiting for cycle test. So this we could be the first and only NC grade 1 interconnect in the US. And there are 21 NC grade 2 interconnect in the market. There's 0 NC grade 1. And you know that's very difficult to achieve. And we did it.
Wow. So right now there's 21 grade 2, 0 grade 1, and you're on the way to get the first grade 1. That's amazing. Let's talk about that a little bit. So when it comes to the electronics in the lock, I mean, as you know, I'm a really big fan of the E-Elite, E-Smart, E-Genius, and I use the E-Smart on a daily basis, which is the deadbolt for those listening. And I know I've experienced exactly what you're talking about with that latch. Like you see it struggling, like there was a lot of heat on the door, so it kind of moved a little bit and it was struggling, and it looked like it was almost all the way retracted, but you knew it quite wasn't. Well, it sounded the alarm and it ended up pulling it back. And so with you using electronic components just to operate mechanical ones, I mean, that seems a much better route than using, the electronic components to actually do the physical work. Am I explaining that properly?
Yes, you are talking about our E-Smart mechanical, this motorized deadbolt. Let me tell you this, I was involved in 1996 to making the motor for the first generation of powerboat by Weisslark, at that time designed by the same. And they were having a lot of problems, just like you described. When they were using mechanical key, they have to push the door or pull the door because the door is warped because of the weather strip. So then they can throw the deadbolt. So when they replace that with a motorized deadbolt, the door doesn't know that. The owner didn't know that they still need to push the door or pull the door. So the deadbolts never really entered the strike smoothly. And sometimes they were jammed. And sometimes they don't have stop mechanism. So they keep running until they drain the battery and then doors unlock. So when we designed E-Smart this time, we changed the motor and add a gear tower to it. So we greatly increased the torque. So the motor is much more powerful than before. And we add the door sensor, so door position sensor. So we from internal gear position, we can know that the bolt is fully extended or is not. Then if it is not, we can, depending on your firmware, you can try to retract and go, extend again, or you stop and send a signal to inform the user that your door is not shut. So this is a totally day and night design now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And like I said, I've used it. I think it's absolutely great how it does that. Now, when it comes to, let's kind of talk about this a little bit. So you're a mechanical lock manufacturer who then got into the electronic locks, yes, like we know of today, the E-Smart, E-Genius, E-Elite.
Yes.
And not only by far, not only are the electronics good, and there's something about locks, like as a person who has grown up in the industry, I love a good feeling lock, right? When you put your hand on it and you pull it down, there's just something to be said about a very high quality lock that feels good. And the first time I laid my hands on one of those E-Elites and I pulled it down, I was like, that feels good. Right. And but a couple of the things that really stood out to me, though, that I'd like to maybe get a little insight on is so when you came to market with the electronic locks, now you do have the XCE, which has a bunch of holes on it, which is like a great retrofit lock, but you decided just to use the through bolts and not put a bunch of extra holes on there, which installers anyone who's ever installed a Town Steel E product loves it. I think it's absolutely great. I mean, how intentional was that when you were designing that series of locks?
Well, first of all, we are lock manufacturer and we are the lock designer. And E Elite is part of the cylindrical lock that we have 3 patents with. So we build the lock strong, heavy, and durable first. We are lock manufacturer. Then we add motor to it. So we have a very great design on the key spindle that by moving a small part, we can achieve locking or unlocking. And our cylindrical lock is a special kind. We have no zinc parts in the key components we call spindle. It's totally steel or powder metal. So it's very heavy duty, and we have an internal spring. So that's why our trim is no spring. So we can be very slim, nice looking. And then that's where we design the E Elite. So without any additional hole prep, you can install it. And remember, this is NC grade 1 product. And that's why you feel good, because it's solid. We are lock manufacturer, adding motor, adding the electronic. Unlike a lot of other companies that have a brilliant design on their software or firmware, but they don't have lock, and they probably don't know how to build locks. And that is the difference. So they probably have a beautiful software, but they put on the grade 2 lock or even grade 3 lock body, then that is just, simply a residential lock. Is not going to last. Ours is built for commercial. Ours is built for lasting. That's why our lock is also very low energy consumption. A 4 AA step battery can last a very long time.
Yeah, it's amazing. When you just think of the locks as a whole, and Dennis, and this is something that you and I have talked about beforehand on a couple occasions,
right?
Is, it's hard from like the outside looking in. It's hard to tell, like, what lock is better than the other, and sometimes you want to go off of price, but price is not always the best, factor. And, and with Town Steel, you guys have it. You have not only the product, and like the fact of like the gearings and the mechanisms inside of the lock, and the fact you chose to not put zinc in it and go steel and all of those other things wrapped up. It's truly amazing. And then when I found out they're made down there, or they're assembled down in your California factory, it's like, it's like when you get a E Elite lock and you open it up, like you can tell that it was put together. I don't know how to explain that differently, but there's not like a ton of grease all over it and all of that kind of stuff. So I think it's absolutely amazing what you did there. Now, from someone who is skeptical or maybe looking at the Town Steel locks, and it's like, okay, you're a lock manufacturer, a mechanical manufacturer, you go to electronics, like, is there that big of a difference between the grade 1 out there today? So if you were just in general, without, we don't need to name any other names or anything, but like, as a component manufacturer, someone who makes these locks, when you look at how you're making the Town Steel E Elite per se, compared to some of the other ones out there, is there mechanical wise, is there a pretty big difference in that?
It is. It's a major difference. A lot of companies, when they design software, they are really not a hardware guy. So they didn't know how the lock will perform. They didn't know that the lock has to, under the sun, the lock has to be mounted on the door. The door may be not hanging well, maybe door is warped, as you know, all the problems. So that's fundamental difference. Because for electronic lock, to me, all the electronic is just like work like a switch. They tell you a lock to open or close. But to open or close physically is still by your mechanical design, and that's where durability plays. You need to have a heavy duty lock, and you need to have a good design. So, for instance, you have used our E Genius before. This is a perfectly designed for the U.S. residents because if they are not using, I think everybody using either a thumb grip or passage knob set with deadbolt on top.
Yep.
With a motorized deadbolt. So the problem is the latch bolt is usually unlock. They cannot deal with that lock. So they don't put any cylinder on the latch bolt and then only rely on the deadbolt. And then that's why when you close the door, you have a chance that you forgot to throw the deadbolt. And then that's when the eGenius provide a solution. Our patented design that makes the lever always lock. And then we can use a credential to trigger the motor to push a key part, we call key, to connect the locking we call stop plate to the driver's spindle driver, and then achieve the dual retraction. So a single motion, dual retraction. And then when you close the door, it's already locked. You will never forget the lock. And then before you release your hand, if you lift the outside lever, when you leave in the house, it's double lock. So all this create a great experience for user. And then extra security and NC grade 1. So all this we're offering to the US residential market.
Yeah. Those eGeniuses are amazing. Yes. And the fact that there's no extra holes, right? Yes. Just the standard prep is, I mean, you know, I'm a big sucker for less holes, you know, and locks. I mean, it not only, you know, when you're installing locks on the door, like the extra time it takes to make sure you put on your paper jig, or if you get a more expensive one and put it on the door. But the other fact is sometimes needs change on doors, right? Maybe this room was the secure room, but now you need a bigger one. And so you're taking that lock off, and, you know, and something like from the end user point of view, I think is that, you know, when you invest hundreds of dollars into a lock on a door and maybe your lease is up, you know, you're going to want to take those locks with you, right? I mean, it's a major investment into a business, and to pull it off and to have a whole bunch of extra holes on the door, I mean, who knows what the landlord is going to be thinking about that.
Exactly. But our eGenius is 2 3/8, 2 3/4 convertible. So we have, and then based on the grade 1, which is hard to make, the grade 1 deadbolt, convertible backset, grade 1 latch bolt, convertible backset. This is a very to make.
Wow. Now, you know, Dennis, the one last thing I want to ask you before we're done here is a lot of probably the number one question we get when it comes to Town Steel is, how do the locks, I'm talking about the eGenius, eSmart, and eElite, how do they hold up in adverse weather, whether that's extra heat or extra cold, rain, snow, you name it?
Basically, right now, all this lock holds the weather pretty well because of our reader lens. They are all coated or potted. And then our lock is well made, and then there's seamless. There's no water can seep in there. So right now we don't have any returns due to the weather because the way we have, and all this contact is well protected with dielectric grease, and all the PC board and reader are all potted or coated. So they are, so they are weather resistance. Yes.
Okay, so if someone were to have a customer who had a business up in the mountains somewhere, and on an exterior door to install like a eElite 5000 Bluetooth, or even a eElite 2000, would you have any hesitations for them to put it on one of those exterior doors?
I have to say there shouldn't be any problem to put on outdoors. But if you're in your example, if they are in the mountain and that is extreme weather, we have a sales rep presented to me that they put our lock in the outdoor. You know, if you remember 2 months ago, there's 13 below zero kind of weather in Colorado, and our lock works. But, you know, I have to be honest with you. If you are in that kind of environment, I would suggest you put some kind of cover on top, at least, so you will have, because I'm saying is, if you go in there in a far, rural area, and you find out something wrong because you didn't protect the lock, then it's sad. So I would suggest you still protect it, although our lock is designed to withstand the weather.
Okay. Yeah. So you're saying, yeah, I think that's very fair. I think that makes sense. But as far as the locks being exterior designed to be outside, that's perfectly fine. That's what they were designed for. Am I right on saying that?
There are a lot of things can happen in electronic lock in my career. So I have to be very careful answering this kind of question. I have a hotel installed in the beachfront. So they say this is ocean front. It's beachfront. So we know that, hey, be careful. This is ocean front. So we say you need a PVD finishes to protect it. Fine. But even PVD won't protect it because they have calcium deposit after all this salt water is sprayed on it. You know what I'm talking about, the calcium.
Yes. Yep.
What can you do? But there's nothing wrong with the lock. But this environment really created the issue. So I want to caution you. Yeah, this is still electronic. You can withstand that kind of weather, but you still need protection. So I suggest my customer use some type of coating like a WD-40 to wipe on the surface once a month to prevent this calcium deposit. So,
okay.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things. And then there's a lot of condensation also. If you have hot weather in the hallway, it's outdoor, and inside you have a strong air conditioning, then you might have a very heavy condensation in your inside the lock. You probably never seen that, but you open the inside cover, the water just dripping like a fall. So we still have to consider all this in together when you are using the electronic lock, even if they're built for that environment, but the actual condition may have a take on that.
Sure. So, I mean, kind of what I'm hearing, is essentially like they're designed to hold up, but they're still electronic, right? And at some point they do, they can't withstand everything permanently all the time.
I think that's fair because, for example, we did 2 years on electronic warranty, 10 years on mechanical for a reason, because electronic, in a special condition, it just doesn't hold that well, but mechanically it will. So we protect it. Like you don't put your phone in the water.
Yeah, at least intentionally.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes absolute sense. Well, Dennis, I am so thrilled to have you on and to talk with you. And one of the cool parts is that like not only are you the owner of Town Steel and have brought these locks that I think are amazing to the market and are great for installers, and the quality with the price you get is I don't think anything right now even comes close to matching that. So thank you for doing that. But on top of that, the fact that we've all been using locks that have your components on it, right?
Possible.
Right? I mean, that's absolutely amazing. So, I mean, you're almost like one of those, like, you're one of the figures in the lock industry that has been around, has been providing all these components, but now we're finally getting to meet you. So I'm really happy about that.
Let me tell you a little story. In 2008, when Town Steel was trying to become a full member for BHMA, and then BHMA board member take a vote on it, and some people say Town Steel is an importer, it's not a manufacturer, because we manufacture all the components in Taiwan. I was born and raised in Taiwan. I came here 40 years ago. So they said we are like another company, like an importer. We're not a manufacturer. But one of the gentlemen did make a point. He said, don't we all import parts? Yes. So finally, we got voted to become a full member unanimously because everybody do that. But we do have manufacturer in here. I mean, small manufacturer, but we do assembly. We have close to 100 employees in CDM Industry, California. We have a 90,000 square feet warehouse. So we are a true manufacturer for the same.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that's something I really hope people kind of get the point across, is that you guys down there at Town Steel are the real deal, when it comes to the manufacturing, the process, and the fact that, you're still providing components to other manufacturers as well. So
yes, we have NDA, so we never mention their names, but yeah, we are just like we make.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's great. Well, Dennis, thank you so much for coming on. What I'm even more excited about is next Tuesday, you're going to come on live with us and give away a couple elites. So I really can't wait. And it's really a privilege of mine to have you on here and to be chatting with you. So thank you. And
thank you, Paul.
Yep. And everyone, thank you for watching. I'm happy that you got to meet Mr. Dennis Ma, and we're going to have fun next Tuesday. So make sure you hop on live at 5:15 Pacific Standard Time, and let's have some fun, and you can ask Dennis some questions. So thank you all, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Bye, PJ.
I'm guessing if you just watched this video that you work with locks and keys. And to us here at CLK Supplies, that makes you a lock boss. And we want to hook you up. Here's how it works. Throughout the week, we post videos on YouTube, like the one you just watched. And all you need to do is comment on the videos and include the hashtag LockBoss. When you do this, you're automatically entered in to win one of 5 free prizes that we give out each and every week. No purchase necessary. So if you're a lock boss, join us each week to learn, grow, and win.